Awesome.
And for those of you that did not get a notification, this meeting will be recorded.
All right, for anybody joining us, if you want to go to Mentimeter, you can follow the directions on here. The easiest way is to usually just scan that QR code in. And our first question today, we want to see what people's favorite playground equipment is. So you can think back to your childhood, but you can also, like, I like to use the swings once in a while and some other things. A lot of you guys have kids, so you can choose your favorite one. We don't have everything that's encompassed by playgrounds in Kansas City because, as you know, there's a lot that's being added to them. You know, the new one off Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard there, bunch of money from the Patrick Mahomes Fund was put towards that. And there's another cool one over towards KU Med with like a huge climbing structure. So the options that we have today are a slide, carousel, swing, stuff like that. So I'm gonna have to choose the carousel. Let me show our results here. All right, we got somebody likes the seesaw. We got a couple people that like the swings. Someone's with me on the carousel. Awesome. Great. All right, next question. This will kind of get us into our conversation for today. It'll get us thinking about the topic. Improving accessibility in Kansas City parks allows for what? This can be anything that comes to mind, things that you've seen in the community, things that you think you haven't seen that accessibility does allow for, that might make sense for Kansas City. All right, and for anybody joining us, feel free to go to menti.com. We're just completing some initial icebreaker questions today, and then you can enter this 8-digit code onto menti.com. All right, these are some good answers to move in new and unique ways, community locations for everyone. Improving accessibility in Kansas City parks allows for neighborhood pride, for the ability for everyone to engage in outdoor activities at parks and playgrounds, and access for all and more welcoming environment. That's great. All right, next question. What modifications have been done in Kansas City or can be done to improve accessibility in these parks? So you'll have to click the next question on your phone, and that'll take you to the next question. This is also short answers, so you can be as long-winded or short-winded as you'd like. On the topic of a carousel, I thought this image was pretty cool of, you know, a variety of different kids being able to use an in-ground carousel, so you don't have to, you know, get up onto it. That's a pretty unique modification. All right, awesome. Improving sidewalks to get into the park. Yeah, accessing the park It's probably the most important thing for a lot of people in the community. Commitment to allocating funds to make inclusive spaces, such as playgrounds, accessible trails, etc. That nail it right on the head. Surfacing, transitioning mulch-based playgrounds to the solid clay rubberized surfaces. Yeah, that don't take as much wear and tear. Installing equipment for people of all abilities to use, great. Curb cuts and improved recreation trails, easy to maneuver walkways, adequate parking. More needs to be done to even have accessible paths into and around the park. And a parent and kid activity. Yeah, parents need to be active too when they go to the parks. That's very true. Awesome, good answers, guys. All right, thanks for popping on the Menti. We'll give you guys kind of a breakdown of the rest of today's meeting and what we're going to be talking about. So I'll kind of hand it on over to Jen, and Jen, feel free to kick me off to share your screen when you're ready if you need to.
Sure. I actually don't have anything prepared screen wise. I know that I said that I would. I apologize. I don't. But just some housekeeping items. So typically the Physical Activity in Parks and Infrastructure Working Group has been meeting monthly. And our plan, our calendar was to meet monthly, and then every quarter we would be having a check-in meeting. So we're kind of at that point where we can do that check-in, kind of reassess where we're at. The format of the meeting has typically been that we'll bring a topic forth that's picked by the participants of the meeting and those that are interested in physical activity in parks and infrastructure. So our last meeting, we had accessibility was our topic. And since we're kind of at that quarterly meeting, Laura and I have decided that we'll be taking it back from monthly meetings and we'll be moving to more of a quarterly meeting format. And then with this meeting here, it's kind of an open format and open discussion. And what we're going to be talking about is a grant that the Kansas City Parks and Recreation Department was awarded from the Health Forward Foundation. We'll discuss that for about 40 minutes, and then we'll do a bike rack session where we can just kind of have an open discussion about anything, any other questions, comments, or concerns, and then we'll talk, wrap it up with what we're doing with future meetings, when our next meeting will be. So I think since we've only got 8 people, I think it makes sense to maybe just go around and everybody introduce themselves. I know a lot of folks have been coming to the meetings. And for those of you who were in the last meeting, I'll introduce Bryce and Shelley. They are our guides assisting with the meetings moving forward since Matt has left us. So I guess we can start with either Bryce or Shelley, whoever wants to hop in first.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm a research assistant with the weighing in team. Been here for about 3 years and work on some of the other sectors of the KCPA plan. So I'm excited to be more involved with PAPI. Good to see everyone.
And I'm Shelley Summer. I manage the weighing in program. I have been a part of weighing in since its inception. And for the physical activity plan, I specifically support the healthcare and faith-based settings sector work groups. But I love, with all the opportunity for cross-sector collaboration, I love participating in as many of them as I can. So happy to be here. Thanks for showing up.
All right, and then Shelley, I think we can just popcorn it around if you want to choose someone to go next.
Sure, how about Allison?
Hello, good afternoon. Allison Smith, I'm with Johnson County Park and Recreation District. I'm the wellness coordinator. And were you supposed to say anything else, or just that's it, right? Okay, perfect. I'll mute now, thanks.
That's it. You can hand it off to someone else though.
Popcorn Amanda Wilson.
Yes, the only other person with their camera on. I got it. Hey, Amanda Wilson. I'm with LISC. I'm a program officer here. I've been here 5 years. We work more closely with neighborhoods and some other groups doing like on the ground sort of park and health and safety work. So it's neighborhood associations and community development corporations that that are also focused on like affordable housing and economic development. So that's who we work closely with. And let's see, I've talked to Anthony before, so I'm gonna pass it over to him.
Hello, this is Anthony. I work at the Whole Person. We're a nonprofit focused on disability advocacy. I specifically work in sports and recreation. So it's everything from adaptive sports to like Special Olympics or developmental recreational opportunities. And I'm involved in some of the programming for the KC Parks and Rec grant. I'd like to let everyone know it's part of that. I think Project Artemis is at 6 p.m. today at Swope Park. There's a fitness for all. So just really focused on programming around the city that's accessible and inclusive. And I'll popcorn it over to Jill.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm joining late. I'm filling in for Nicole Brown, and she's out of town, so I was like texting her to get the link. So anyway, I'm on now, but I'm with Johnson County Department of Health and Environment, and I am on the healthy schools sector, but just kind of sitting in today to report back to Nicole and of course, try and make any connections with the two groups. So thanks for having me.
And Jill, you can pass it over to, I don't know if you know who's left to go. If you don't, I can bring it to someone else.
Yeah, I don't know who's got. Allison, have you gone? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
let's move over to Kelsey.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Reinberg, and I'm a dietetic intern working with Shelley at the Wing In program. And so I'm just kind of listening in today and helping out her and the team and some of these physical activity plans and work groups.
Awesome. I think that just leaves Jill, Jill Monroe. Okay, and maybe Jill doesn't have the ability to unmute. I know some of our Kansas City computers don't have microphones, so looks like she typed in she's the wellness manager for the city of Kansas City, Missouri. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for going around and doing introductions. So like I said at the beginning, we'll be doing a little bit of a different format today. Typically we have presentations. We've decided to do something more just open format, discussion wise. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Project Artemis, which is a grant funded project with the Kansas City Parks and Recreation Department. It's a grant that's funded by the Health Forward Foundation. We were awarded that grant right around the end of the summer, August, early September time. And some of our project focuses were to evaluate some of the physical assets, programs, and services available through Kansas City Parks and Recreation in relation to accessibility and inclusion for people with disabilities. We're also going to be creating a plan to access and inclusion, and then implementing an organization-wide policy to ensure inclusion into our future projects and programs. So where we are at with that, we have, as Anthony said, there is a program portion of the grant that we are partnered with Wes Hamilton and his group Disabled But Not Really, where we'll be featuring physical activity in the parks that are accessible for all. So the program is called Fitness for All, and it is at Swope Interpretive Center at Swope Park today at 6 o'clock. So if anyone's interested, that'll be for all abilities to take part in a physical fitness class with Wes and a Kansas City Parks trainer, Ramon Jackson from Southeast Community Center. And we'll be doing a series of these events throughout the fall and the spring. So that's a portion of what we're doing with the grant. Some other things that we are focused on and that we're working on and we're bringing to the discussion here today is just kind of brainstorming ideas and just talking about how we can bring more accessibility to Kansas City Parks and Recreation. So you're kind of getting to see a behind the scenes of where we're at and where we're hoping to go. So one of our focuses is to be able to bring on a consultant who can help us to assess and evaluate our physical assets, the programs and the services that we provide. We're still in search and looking for requests for proposals on that. And then we're also looking for either the same consultant or a separate consultant to assist us with opening an inclusive summer camp in the summer of 2022. We'd like to hold that summer camp at one of our community centers. And so we're really just looking for a partner there to be able to assist us with the planning and the execution of that summer camp. We're also going to be reaching out to the community and surveying out related to accessibility, trying to get some feedback from some of the programs that we currently run and how we can change or offer different services. So that's a kind of a broad overview of what we're going to be doing with the grant, Project Artemis. And so I'll just kind of open it up and ask if there's any questions or any thoughts on that or any suggestions.
Jen, is there a web link to Project Artemis? Sorry.
Yes, I think that we may have one.
I was gonna shoot that over to our special pops folks and children's services and some of those guys to make sure that they could share that with their folks.
And you know what? I don't think we have anything on our website just yet. But I can get you some information on it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Anthony. I was curious if the programming in Project Artemis is going to include like non-physical activity things like art programming in the Westport Roanoke Community Center or other kind of initiatives.
So Anthony, I think that's a great question. Right now, we just have the physical activity with the Fitness for All program going on. And I think, so the short answer is no, we don't have any plans for that right now. But I think that is definitely a possibility. And I think that's something that can be included because we know that health and wellness is not just about physical activity. It's about, you know, arts programming as well. And I think through our inclusion coordinator, she'll be putting out a survey to just kind of assess what are the desires for programming. And I wouldn't be surprised if that came back, particularly in the Westport Roanoke community or park community area, that would be a desire of them to see that included.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I wonder if we could find any resources for October 20th, if the weather is, you know, a little bit colder and people wanted to be inside doing some other activities. They had like 2 additional options or something like that. Because there's 2 dates right now for the project play, is that right? Let's see.
Fitness for All.
Fitness for All, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, we actually, oh, sorry, go ahead, Anthony.
I sent the flyer to everyone in the chat. So it has some of the details.
Perfect.
And I think our, well, I know our current plan is, knowing that the weather may be a little bit colder at the end of October, we do have an indoor option. But I think it's a really great suggestion to include not just physical activity, but maybe have another option that people would be interested in participating in, instead of just like a workout opportunity.
Yeah, you guys have a lot of resources like kitchens where cooking can be done and stuff like that. So it's exciting that you got funding for this type of programming. And then Bryce, this is the Fitness for All is kind of the culmination of the awareness videos that were publicized on Facebook that are included in the park directory. So this is kind of where that's come to.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Yeah, I know there was an event a couple of years ago for Martin Luther King Day at the Linwood YMCA that I went to, and they had a bunch of like cool arts and crafts to do. I remember it was a pretty cold day, and we, I think we were doing like tying paracord bracelets and had some other like fun projects. So.
It looks like Allison had a question in the chat. Have you guys thought about doing any puzzles or brain game activities for the indoor dates? I think to be honest, again, I think we have just been focused on the fitness aspect of it. But Taryn Anderson, our inclusion coordinator, and she's brought forth just doing other activities like activate your brain, and other just more accessible things that aren't fitness related. So in a way, yes and no, we haven't gotten very far on those indoor options, but I think that's a really great suggestion, because not everybody will want to or will be able to take part in all of the physical activity options that we currently have available.
So Jen, something we did at our last adventure race, you could either solve a puzzle or you could try and get 2,000 steps on a pedometer. And it was kind of like a pedometer race. And so it was multiple people on a team. So one teammate would be shaking a pedometer tied to their shoe and get as many steps as they can while this person was trying to solve this puzzle. And if you got the puzzle solved first, then you get the answer. If you got 2,000 steps first before the puzzle, then you got the answer. But it was kind of like a race. So it was like brain game and then also physical as well included. And then we also did pedometer races at our rec staff meeting. We had like groups of 4, and then each person had 2 pedometers, and they pedometered for 20 seconds a piece, and whoever had the most steps at the end won. So that might be kind of a cool competition. It's easy. Shelly, I don't know if you guys have extra pedometers at Children's Mercy. I know I had a stash from some other initiative, but it is popular. It was a big hit. Other people are now going to do that with the kids at summer camp and stuff.
We have some giveaways for kids, but we don't have any pedometers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, Allison, that's a great suggestion. And I think that's something that we can definitely implement into our plan too.
I have a bunch of questions if no one else does, but so I was curious about the relationship with I think it's Camp Fire, the one that runs the summer camps, I believe currently out of the community centers like all across the city, and if it was possible to incorporate like inclusive programming in the camps that are already ongoing, as opposed to kind of creating a separate camp. And because we have a lot of that stuff going on already with like Johnson and Jackson County Parks and Rec and the Special Olympics and stuff like that. And then so that's the first question, I guess. How much kind of control is there over that relationship with the people that we've
Sure.
contracted with?
So we do partner with Campfire Heartland, and they run one camp. It's located at Camp Lake of the Woods at Swope Park during the summer. The 6 locations of summer camp that Kansas City Parks and Rec runs at the community centers, those are all internally run camps. And one of our goals is to make all of our camps inclusive. I think the initial camp was just like the mindset behind that was to have a camp of all abilities. So yes, I did call it like the inclusive camp, but it would be for people or for children of all abilities to be able to participate in. And then our goal would be to spread that model to make all of our camps inclusive. So I hope that answers your question. As part of summer camp, we do have an accommodations request form that goes out. So if we have any kids that need assistance, though that information goes to Taryn, our inclusion coordinator, and she works with the camp to just make sure that the child gets everything that they need to participate in camp.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're saying like there's probably going to be a little kind of test in the short term at like Brush Creek Community Center or something like that to see what kind of ideas are leverageable.
Yep. So it's essentially like a pilot program for summer 2022. And our thought is that we're going to have the camp located at Marlboro Community Center. So we're in the process of, like I said, trying to find a partner who has the expertise to assist us with that camp, and then move forward with running that pilot summer camp program.
Okay, and I'm just curious why Marlboro as opposed to Brush Creek Community Center?
So Brush Creek Community Center is typically one of our other partner locations for summer school. We partner with Upper Room at Brush Creek Community Center. It is a location that we do a lot of adaptive and inclusive programs. That's typically where we have those programs housed out of. But because we already know that we'll be partnering with Upper Room, we had to find another location for our pilot summer camp program. So that's the reasoning behind it.
Okay. Thank you. And my second question is like, can you tell us the actual amounts tied to, I'm more interested in like infrastructure improvements. Like, was there an amount awarded by the Health Forward Foundation and allocated towards like curb cuts and improving surfacing and stuff like that? Is there a portion dedicated to the programming, and what are those amounts?
Sure. So the overall grant was awarded for $125,000. And part of the grant stipulations is that Parks and Recreation would match that amount. So that is brings the total to about $250,000. Let me just pull up because I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. The actual amounts, and a lot of the whether it's grant funded or not, one of our focuses in Kansas City Parks and Rec is on making some improvements. So if we go above and beyond the grant budget, we do have a budget to make those improvements. So like I said, let me just pull up the overview.
Okay, yeah, I'm really curious what the breakdown between like consulted services and programming versus actual kind of park improvements or access to the parks that'll kind of be around for 20, 30 years.
Sure. And we do view the grant as, like I said, we've already made a commitment to putting money towards making improvements. So it's kind of a jumping off point for us, because we're already committed to spending in this area.
Yeah, it's really exciting that you guys got dedicated budget to this initiative of inclusion and, you know, as opposed to kind of taking from other budgets like ADA and things like that, or general budget. So really excited that this funding happened.
Right, I completely agree. Just, you know, to be fully transparent, overseeing the budget for community services, I can tell you that right now our adaptive budget is paired with our athletics budget. So one of the goals is to break out the adaptive budget to be able to add some dedicated funds instead of, you know, kind of stealing from the athletics budget that it's currently in. And I apologize, I am having difficulty finding this document. Usually I just have it available. So it's taken me some extra time to pull it up.
While you're doing that, Jen, I wanted to ask, and I know you mentioned this, but maybe I missed your final response on it. You talked about an outside consultant, I think, to come help you do your assessment or evaluation of your parks, and it's your equipment and infrastructure that meets the needs for people of all abilities.
Yep.
Did you find a consultant or no? You're still looking?
We did not. We are still looking, and definitely open to suggestions. Pretty much we're looking for someone who has some experience and some like planning and design background as well. And so, yeah, we're still looking for that consultant.
And do you have a tool identified that they might use to do that evaluation or assessment, like the different park audit tools that already exist that probably don't address what you're talking about?
We do not have a tool identified.
Okay.
I think that's the challenge probably with finding a consultant in this space is that, you know, beyond the ADA requirements, it's really like a general sentiment on accessibility.
Yeah, well, we have some researchers that we've worked with, and Kansas City, Missouri Parks and Rec was involved with this, the original project as well, to design a park audit tool that's easier for people within a community to use. So it's been developed. It's called the Community Park Audit Tool. So there are a number of park audit tools that are designed for research, very intensive, cumbersome, long. But this tool was specifically designed to be easier to use and to be used in community settings, whether it's for Park and Rec Department to do their own evaluation of their parks, or for community members to use that tool to advocate for a change in their park or access to their park. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that tool and see if there's anything related to accessibility. There are a couple of questions I know related to parking, but that's not, you know, that's an issue for everybody. That's not an accessibility issue, quite honestly. I think getting into the park is, and what's the equipment, you know, related to people, or that makes it easy for people of all abilities. So what I'd like to do is reach out to them and see if they have any suggestions for something like this, or maybe it's something they'd be willing to take on and potentially add to their toolbox. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Okay, I apologize, Anthony. I'm having trouble pulling up this program budget. I think that I'm working on the overall department budget, and for some reason it's not letting me pull up two Excel documents at the same time. I can say off the top of my head, I think that we had and this is an in-kind, approximately $50,000 budgeted for consulting. So that would be 50 from Health Forward Foundation grant and then 50 from Kansas City Parks budget. So that is an estimate of what we would be looking at consultant wise. And I think that also relates to the health and wellness programming as well. And we have partnered with disabled, but not really in some of that programming. So that is what I remember off the top of my head.
Great. So it's like 100 for programming and 150 for infrastructure improvements in your best guess.
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, if you want to reach out to me, I've been on the board of the Disabled But Not Really Foundation for a few years, and I have some general suggestions. Like from a high level, the ADA of the Great Plains would be a good place to start, and then there are like a couple people locally that kind of have some credibility that I can refer you to.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Any other questions or comments? I think we did foresee that potentially the discussion may not last the full 40 minutes or take us to the full hour. So in consideration of that, we thought that we could probably end the meeting a little bit early. We can open up to the bike rack, any kind of other discussions. Typically in these meetings, when we see someone in the meeting and have a question not related to the specific topic, that's kind of where the magic happens, I think, where people just start to get talking about different things that are going on throughout the community. So we can open up to the bike rack for a couple minutes and then we can wrap up.
Jen, I have one additional question, and that's how does this, if at all, connect to other infrastructure improvements? So I know you all are specifically focused on parks, but how might this, what you're doing, connect with efforts of organizations like Bike Walk KC that might focus a little bit more on infrastructure like sidewalks or access to the park to ensure that not only is the park accessible, but there are ways to get to the park that maybe the park doesn't have jurisdiction over, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of opportunity here to align efforts. I think in our specific grant, it is very parks and park facility focused.
Sure.
But I think, like I said, I think there's a lot of coordination that can happen, you know, specifically with that example, to increase connectivity from neighborhoods to park locations, or just increase throughout the city, whether it's transportation or infrastructure. But we, to be honest, have not done a lot of thinking outside of our current lane. But I think that is a big opportunity here. And Allison, I see that you have a suggestion to look into MPRA and KRPA for park accessibility plans, seeing if they have a toolkit or already known vendors. I think that's a great suggestion. I know that like I said, our inclusion coordinator, she's very connected throughout the community, and just we'll make sure that we look into that avenue as well.
I had a question with the physical improvements that will be identified. Do you see those as being funded through like your capital improvement budget or PIAC, or a combination of that or other things?
Yeah, I think it'll be a combination of PIAC funding, our regular capital funding plan, and then we also have a deferred maintenance budget. So anything that doesn't come from one of those areas, we can identify funds to make upgrades to parks as we go. Yeah, so I do think that we have a big opportunity here to, with the grant, identify through our consultant and our audit of parks and parks facilities where our needs are, and really start to allocate some funds to making upgrades to those locations and then to our programs as well.
And with that, I expect that the need and the cost is going to be a lot greater than what kind of money there is, even if you get additional grants. Do you have any idea of how that consultant report will help prioritize investments, or do you know how those parks will be prioritized, or how those improvements identified will be prioritized?
So I don't think we've gotten far enough down the line to really know like what the scope of the work will be. One thing I can say is that we have, as a department, made a commitment to allocate more funds to parks on the east side of the city. So I think as we move forward with some of the recommendations and try to identify funding, we will put more funding towards updating and improving facilities on the east side of Kansas City, Missouri.
Thanks.
Sure. And I hope that makes Anthony happy, because I know in the last meeting we were in, he was very supportive of putting funds and making upgrades to those east side locations.
Yes, that is definitely a goal I think we all have at this point in the city. Are we still kind of focused on the opportunity zones or LifeX zip codes? Is that where this Project Artemis is primarily focused?
Yes, there is a big focus on those LifeX zip codes, and we call it the Quality of Life Investment District now. So we have a separate Parks District focused on those 6 zip codes specifically. And so, just for example, when we meet to allocate funds for deferred maintenance, we prioritize putting money towards those 6 zip codes, or the QLID zip codes, ahead of any other deferred maintenance funds that we might be allocating. So those areas are prioritized.
Awesome, that's great to hear. And kind of to Shelley's point about kind of reaching out to overlapping organizations, as I've gone through a lot of the East Side parks, by far the nicest are the ones that have a huge investment by like the neighborhood association or some other group of individuals that lives and owns the area. So that's just my general comment.
Absolutely.
Also, the parks that have investment by the utility companies are really nice. So if there's any partnership there.
Okay.
What do those look like, Anthony?
Like Marlboro Park, the water company did a really great landscaping infrastructure that kind of tackled a problem they had with runoff in the area. So they were able to get a large amount of external funding to improve the park. I mean, one of the nicest parks in town is the Berkeley Riverfront that was funded by the Kansas City Port Authority. I'm not really sure what they are, but you definitely see some kind of common themes in the nicer parks. And then, you know, just the city's commitment to making the East Side nicer in general. We have a lot of residential opportunity over there, and we see like the parks being kind of an anchor of that.
One thing I'll ask this group, maybe you have some information about this that would make it easier for us. So as we think about the physical activity plan, one of the pieces that we've been working to communicate and think about is how this isn't just about physical activity. It's about other things like mental health, getting outside into nature, the mental health improvements from physical activity, safety and violence prevention. So when you get outside, when you're being physically active, you can increase eyes on streets, decrease violence. When you do things sort of like what Anthony's talking about, when you achieve community investment or, you know, neighborhood associations who are supporting change or supporting them or advocating for it, you can increase social capital, which has economic advantages. And one of the things we've been looking at to demonstrate the value of physical activity plan is information or research that supports the non-health benefits of a physical activity plan. For example, the real estate benefits when you improve parks and playgrounds in neighborhoods, the economic development improvements or increases when you improve infrastructure to make it easier to walk or bike to get places. The those are just a couple of examples that I'm thinking of, and so they've kind of come up today. And so I don't know if any of you know of research that might help us continue to make that point. I think this is something that everybody should see themselves in, in some way or another, whether it's personal, related to their work, simply to increase their own property values, or a variety of different things. And so putting these pieces together and having the information to support it is really a valuable piece for us as we communicate and try to engage other people in these efforts.
Hey, Shelley. I'm on the Sexual Violence Prevention Coalition group, and we're currently doing a community survey. So if you want, I can ask the committee and see if that's something that we could try and share at the next meeting if they wanted to go over those results from the survey.
Great, especially if they have think about the number of times that a sexual assault might occur in a park or a playground setting. And so if we increase the number of people who are going out to these settings, the idea would be that you decrease decrease those numbers.
Yes.
And if you talk about safety when you're outside, for example, don't run alone, or, you know, the things we all hear, how does that inform what we talk about, how we design programs, projects, communicate information, that sort of thing? So
And
I'll leave it at
I know that that's something part of trail development as well too. They try with a lot of the new trails they're putting in, they're trying to make sure that it's not, a lot of trails need to meander, but they try not to create blind spots to where it's a safety risk. So that's been a big problem with some parks and rec agencies I've noticed. Just there's an article about it, but that helped. Trail development is taken into that consideration. Some of those coalition groups got involved to make sure new trails were safer and had more adequate lighting, so they weren't danger zones for predators.
Well, right, and that there are opportunities for people to see the path at all times versus some paths that are in very heavily wooded areas that look very pretty when everything is nice and going well, but is
Terrifying in the early
Yes.
morning or
when you're by
dusk.
yourself.
Yeah.
Thanks, Allison.
And we have access to data through a community survey, but it's very specific for the disabled community. And I will share that in the chat. And feel free to share on through your guys' channels. And maybe this is something that could fit in more with Project Artemis and then the physical activity plan, but it's very specific. And I can share the results of that as well.
That'd be great. One additional, so as we've been on this call, I've been emailing Dr. Mark Fisher, who is a pediatrician at Children's Mercy focusing on rehab. And I asked him about camps for kids with disabilities. There are a couple of camps that he knows of that exist. One is Camp Midiog and one is the Muscular Dystrophy Association camp or camps that they might support. And he shared that in his experience, there haven't been any camps that integrate kids with disabilities into a camp setting that already exists, or I guess that does it broadly. In his experience, it says it needs to be a specialized camp. I guess there are probably, I don't know, limitations or exceptions to that comment as well. But I was just sharing that, Jen, for your information as you guys think about how to do that.
Yeah, that's actually one of the bigger hurdles, is to figure out how logistically to run that pilot camp.
Yeah, he suggests there are kids that are able to participate in mainstream camps if they have limited needs, like they're generally independent but have prosthetic something.
Yeah.
Leg, hand, forearm, arm. But
Yeah.
kids with higher levels of disabilities may not be able to. There may be, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't speak out of turn. I'm not the expert on this, but thought I would share.
Well, I think that, from an advocacy perspective, it's progressive to advocate for inclusion in existing programming just for individuals' general health and well-being, and not, fighting against the separate but equal treatment. So I think that that's what Dr. Fisher is saying there, is that doesn't currently exist. And that was kind of to my previous comment about Campfire, is that, if we're going to be progressive about inclusion and diversity, we need to start exploring ideas that are progressive. And then this is more, I think, for Project Artemis, but as we have a network of community partners, and a lot of the Parks and Rec organizations are on there. So if I'm putting these links in the chat. If there's any thing we can do to help support the initiative, please let me know, or any of those organizations.
And Anthony,
Yeah.
I think you make a great point that just because it doesn't exist, they don't exist now, doesn't mean they can't. And I also think there might be ways to chip away at this incrementally versus thinking we have to be all in to start. You know what I mean?
I was just going to add in one of the things that we are exploring, whether it's through Project Artemis or funded through Project Artemis or funded through our parks budget, is having a separate, almost like accessible services option. We did have to turn someone away from summer camp because we did not have the staffing or the properly trained staff to just be able to include that child with their level of disability. Essentially, we would need a paraprofessional to be with that child at camp. And so that opened a discussion of if we don't have the ability, can we contract with someone who does have that ability? And then we recently had a request at one of our athletics programs that the parents are not able to hear, but to be able to enjoy their 5 and their 7-year-old child participating in our soccer program. They requested an interpreter to be present at that event, and we were able to accommodate that request. But that is kind of where we would like to put together some of these contracts for accessible services so that if we're not able to provide it, we have a budget available and we have that accommodation available to include the children or the members of the family who want to enjoy that program. And it can be quite costly, so we would not want to pass that cost on to those families. But that's kind of a discussion that's been opened up with Project Artemis, and then the request that we received over the summer that we weren't able to accommodate.
Yeah, it's a really tough topic. I mean, I know you guys have done a swim program with the Rehab Institute that was like hundreds of dollars per participant, and you footed the bill for. So it's definitely just a general discussion.
Yeah. And we are about a minute away from the end of our time. I said that we would end early, but clearly I was lying because the discussion just continued. So as we wrap up, I just want to thank everybody for coming to the discussion today. If you have any feedback or comments about it, you can send it to myself, Shelley, or Bryce. And then looking forward to future meetings, we talked about going to a quarterly format that would put us at a December meeting, which I just don't think is going to work. So we're going to be meeting in January of 2022 again. So again, thank you everybody for coming to the discussion and being part of the work group. We will be sending out a meeting invite in the coming months for our quarterly PAPI meeting coming up. So thank you. And Bryce or Shelley, do you want to add anything that I may have forgotten? I think I got it all.
I think you got it
Thanks,
all.
everyone. I will promote the weighing in quarterly meeting that will be in December. And I believe it's December 9th, Thursday, December 9th. You should see information coming out in our monthly newsletters. I encourage everyone to sign up then. We'll be providing updates. So hopefully we can share a Project Artemis update at that meeting prior to the next PAPI meeting. Thanks for sharing information in the chat. We'll download any information and access some of that through the chat and try to share that through our communication channels as well.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.